Hello, everybody. I know I'm running late. Let me adjust this microphone. My gosh. Sorry about that. Maybe we'll be okay now. Let me get my phone hooked up. Wait a second. I hope I have some people on watching. Man, it's been a crazy last 2 hours. We went out, get my hat straight. I haven't had a chance to do nothing. I guess that's right. We went out to eat and everything, and the was a little further than I wanted it to be. Then I get in my car, drive home, jump out. Lisa takes my car. I've left my phone in the car. And I had no way of calling her. So anyway, I voice called through the computer, and I got her. I mean, I don't know how we pulled this off, but pulled it off in time to be here with you. Man, I thank you guys for holding up. I'm trying to organize. I just ran in the door. I did. And anyway, it's been crazy. I was getting ready to cancel the show, but everything just kind of fell in place. Randy Green, glad to hear you there, buddy. It's getting ready to rain here too, and I want to get some things set here just a bit, so when Rob calls in, we'll be good. Okay, that'll work out for me. I hope, but trying to find out what works best on this microphone. Maybe you're out there. I don't know. Well, I usually have about 30 minutes I work before I come on the air, and tonight I walked in 2 minutes before we were supposed to be out. We went out to eat at a really cool place. I can't remember the name. McLeod's Mountain. It's here on the outside of town a little bit, and anyway, we're driving. I miss a sign. I go 15 miles on down the road, and all of a sudden I'm out there, and here's all these cars all parked in the road and everything, and some of them look like they've been set on fire, and it's, man, I got to get out of here. Made a wrong turn. Telephone lost GPS directions and everything, so I was on the edge of the earth somewhere. But anyway, I got home. About got killed several times, but I'm home. But let's talk about my buddy here. I usually take time to read up on people, but I know this guy so good. We'll talk a lot about things he's done, but Rob Ickes is going to be calling in here in a little bit, and that was the thing freaking me is my phone was in the car and I had no way to call. But Rob will be on here in a little bit. He's one of my best buddies. Known Rob a long time. A 13-time IBMA of the Year award for Dobro Player of the Year. That's pretty tough right there, 13 of them. And Rob's, in my opinion, one of the greatest players that's ever picked that instrument up. He can play any style. He's playing now with Rob and Trey, which they're doing duets, and they're pretty killer shows. But Rob's spent a long time as a founding member and a long time with Blue Highway, which I know many of you guys are familiar with all his music. He's done a lot of records. And anyway, we're going to have him on a little bit. Rob is just a good guy. One of the best guys in the business, I think. And you're going to enjoy him. But he's a California guy. He's been in Nashville for a while now, so he's I guess he's a Tennessee boy now. But you're gonna enjoy him. And anyway, I hope everybody's doing good tonight. Been getting a little rain off and on today, and I have to watch what I do because it's kind of hard to me on dialysis and stuff. But I had some steps. I said I'm going to get them done, and I did. I got my steps done, got concrete poured and everything, and here come the rain. So I'll know when it's over with. but you have to get concrete wet anyway to make it work. So hopefully, that'll be pretty good. I've not went out and looked at it, but I've stressed myself out today is what I've done. It was, I probably mentioned to you, me and Lisa, I'm trying to lose some weight, so she went on a diet with me to help keep me on there. And what we're doing is just eating very healthy, and I'm the one that needs to lose the weight, but she's wanting to help me. And so we eat, real strict 6 days, and then we have a day that's our cheating day. It's usually Friday, but today, I was talking to her about when I cheat on Friday, I go to dialysis and my weight is up. And when your weight's up from water, they really punch you with that dialysis, and it's pretty rough. I always, for the rest of the night, I just feel like you'd rather just be dead or something. A couple hours after dialysis, on those days they have to take too much. So we decided to make cheat day on Thursday. And anyway, I wanted to do something good since we only eat once a week. I always try to do that. So, this place we went to tonight was a little further than I thought it would be. So I raced to getting back, and I guess what happens, I just left my phone in the car, which was stupid. But it happens when you run. But let's see who all we got on over here tonight. Mentioned Randy Green. Glad to have you on, Randy. Rich Cooper. Good to see you too, buddy. And Cindy Spear, Duncan. They are super. Hey, listen. Cindy's got a son that, now wait a minute, let me make sure I'm reading this right. No, I got you mixed up. I'm sorry, Cindy. Got you mixed up with somebody else. I know who you are, but just the name for a second threw me. But glad to have you on, Cindy, definitely. And Andy Fancher, good guy, even if he's from California. Well, I used to hold that against him, and I still do sometimes. But you're right. Rob is a great guy, and you guys are really going to enjoy him. Michael Shoemaker, glad to see you on tonight. And I appreciate all the folks that tune in every week. I try to keep good people you would want to hear from. I'm going to do some different things as time comes. I'm going to kind of throw a twist here and there. I had a WWF wrestler on, and that was pretty cool. So here's somebody else weird we're getting right now. My old buddy Rob Ickes. Is that you, Rob?
What's up, Mr. Phil?
Buddy, everything, but you're the one that's up tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh man, I've been telling everybody me and my wife went to eat, and we went to eat somewhere that was a little further than I thought it was. So I raced back to the house, and I don't have a home phone anymore. So I left my phone in the car, and she took my car. And I had no way of getting in touch with her because my phone that you called me on. And I said, well, she'll be in Walmart and get a call from Rob, and she'll say, oh, God, I've got his phone. But it worked out, man. I got my phone back about 3 or 4 minutes ago. So.
Oh, perfect.
Oh,
well, I hope you had a good dinner also.
Yeah, it was good. It was rushed because I had to get back to talk to you, man.
Well.
Buddy, I'm glad to have you on tonight, Rob. I know me and you go back a long way, and the first time that I remember seeing you, it's kind of a funny story, but you were playing with Len Morris, and we were somewhere in New York, and I think it was you and David Greer had sat in that night. I don't know if you remember that show or not.
Oh, yeah, I remember that well. Yeah.
I remember sitting up in my room and watching you guys out the window because we played, then went to the room, and but I'd never met you, but I could hear you through the glass, and I thought, man, this guy's killing it. So you come up to the room later on, and it was you and Greer, and I'm trying to remember who else, but anyway, the thing about that, I guess it was me and Kurt Chapman had ordered a pizza, and about the time we ordered that, Crow called me wanting to come over so we could get everybody paid. So I go over to his room and I come back and all the pizza's gone, and David Greer had totally wiped it out, and there was somebody else, I can't remember who else would have been with you guys. I know it was Lynn and Marshall, you and David.
I was usually a 4-piece, I think. So
okay.
yeah, it's probably just the 4 of us.
That's
and that was one of my first gigs with her, probably.
Yeah, you hadn't been over here on the East Coast very long, had you?
No, and that was that was the first summer that I lived in Tennessee. So yeah, and Lynn was and is in Winchester, Virginia. So I remember I just had this major drive, just to get to their van.
I remember that. Off. I remember that. It's funny how stuff is with time. Things you forget and things you don't. But I remember that because I remember the night I met you, that I said, man, this guy, I don't know who he is, but he's going to be a big deal. And you turned out to be a big deal, man.
Well, thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. Right back at you.
Hey, buddy, I appreciate you. And 13 times IBMA Dobro Player of the Year, is that right?
That's crazy, yeah.
That's good. Good stuff right there. And you've won so many other things, but let's talk about some stuff. Let's talk, I know you're from California, a lot of folks don't, but let's tell them about the town you were in and what got you playing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my family, was really into music. And when I think back, when you're growing up, you just think, well, yeah, everybody's grandpa plays fiddle and everybody's mom plays guitar. And you don't think it's unusual, but you get older and you realize how special it was, So I grew up around this old time fiddle music. My grandparents were very involved in that whole scene, and my grandma used to MC a lot of the fiddle contests on the West Coast, and so I just grew up here in Liberty and boil them cabbage down and all that stuff, and I was supposed to play the fiddle, and my grandpa gave me one when I was 7, and he gave me a lesson. And I took the fiddle home and just never took it out of the case for some reason. I liked it, but I just wasn't interested in playing it. And then, that all changed a few years later, and I heard Mike Aldridge's first album, and it just blew my mind. It made me, just to hear the sound of that dobro and the way he played it, it just made me feel really good, and I just couldn't get enough of that sound. And so, but yeah, I mean, my brother's a really good musician. He plays banjo and electric guitar and pedal steel, but it was when I think back on it, I just my dad didn't play, but he was way into it. Went to all the festivals and he I remember when I first started playing, every time he heard a song on the radio that had a dobro in it, he'd call me from my bedroom, "Hey, Robbie, come here, listen." And so just a lot of just everybody, like people like Tony Rice and J.D. Crowe and Jerry Douglas. I mean, those people were heroes around our house. Very Earl Scruggs.
Mine too.
Yeah. So you get older and you kind of realize you were kind of being groomed for this whole thing, without knowing it. But so I'd say it was just a very supportive, very musical childhood, really.
Well, you mentioned the Mike Aldridge album. That's the one that got me wanting to play. Are you talking about the Tacoma album? It's
yes, sir, the brown one.
Yeah, man. What was your song off that? Mine was "Pick Away" and "House of the Rising Sun."
Yeah, I mean, I liked them all. I liked Tennessee Stud was just so cool. Just such a great arrangement. And I tell you, I like David Bromberg's playing on there. Him and Mike just connected musically, and I found out later that the guy who engineered, of course, it's a beautifully mixed album, and all the tones are amazing. And young George Massenburg recorded that and mixed it. And of course, he went on to invent parametric EQ, and he's one of the most famous recording engineers in the world. And he did several of the early Seldom Seen albums, and I think he mixed California Autumn, that Tony Rice album. But anyway, so it's just even I listen to it now, and it's a great mix, and great playing by everybody. And I think some of Vassar Clements' best playing ever, and that's saying something, because he played great all the time. But I tell you, he absolutely nailed it to the wall on that record. And
that's when I became a fan of Vassar, was that album.
Heck yeah. I mean, he's a big part of that record, I think. He's a big part of any record he played on. But there was some, I don't know, Mike just did, and that was his first record, so I'm always kind of just impressed at how well he did his first time at bat, so to speak, as far as making it. And this was, he told me it was before the Seldom Seen had even started, when he made that album. So what a great first time at bat, and I think we've talked about this at Reso Summit before with the faculty, and one year we talked about it, and about half the faculty members, that's the record that got them into the dobro, So I'm not the only one, and you're not the only one. I mean, that record turned a lot of people onto the dobro and music in general,
that what it was with that album. And this isn't saying anything about Mike Aldridge negative, but the stuff was so good, but it was also playable for us. It didn't have a lot of weird stuff in it to get started. You could follow Mike. I mean, you may not nail it, but you could follow, because he left a pretty wide footprint in things like Greensleeves that you could figure out pretty easy. But the thing I found out is, no matter how quick I could find it out, the thing that you couldn't get off that record and you couldn't learn was tone. And Mike had that. That was something you just couldn't pick up in half hour learning Greensleeves. And till I heard Mike play it live, it was like, I tell you a funny thing about Mike. First time I saw Mike was at Gettysburg. And I was coming over the hill, and I heard, I think he was playing Walk, Don't Run, and it was just so big sounding. And I'm getting out of the car, and I said, I'm going to go around the stage and see what he's got that hooked into. And I go in around there, and he's got a microphone hooked into the patch with all the rest of them, no effects.
Yeah.
And I was just sure he was playing through some kind of system. And it was Mike, which he had that, he always carried that KM84. But, man, he was, it's like he was blowing the earth down. And Mike's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah, we had a similar experience in Blue Highway. We were playing a show in New Deal, Maryland, which is near Mike's hometown, where he's from. And there was Mike was playing with the band on the bill, but we didn't know he was with them. I think he just sat in with them once in a while. And I think it was the New Deal string band that he called. And but we just pulled into the parking lot. It was like an outdoor one-day festival thing, and we heard this amazing dobro tone just floating through the air. And I remember Sean Layden said, "Oh my gosh, is Mike Aldridge here?" And of course, there's no mistaking that tone. But even at that late point in his career, he still had this amazing sound, just the microphone. And I'm sure it was that same KM84, used that on every show apparently. Yeah. So, but a very important guy on the instrument for sure.
Definitely. Mike was a big one for so many people. But let me ask you now, after you got playing, which you mentioned fiddle, I'm glad you didn't do that, because Stuart Duncan wouldn't have liked that if you learn fiddle like he did dobro.
Oh man, well he's safe for me, that's for sure.
Well, you playing what you're meant to play, and let's start back a little early. Let's move on a little bit. But you played with Lynn Morris and all that. When did you guys get together and start and decide to do Blue Highway? Are you still there, Rob? I think we've lost Rob. He didn't like that question, I don't think. Maybe he'll call back. Let's see. He should. I'll crank down.
I'm hearing you.
Hey, are you? Well, I didn't.
Yeah. I got you.
Your microphone must have left out for a minute or something, or maybe I dialed mine out. Who knows? Did you tell about Blue Highway? How you got started? Did I miss that?
Well, I was just saying that I met Tim Stafford through Alison Krauss, and when she would come out to the West Coast, I would sit in with her sometimes, and that was always a thrill, of course. And then when I moved to Tennessee, Tim called me to play on a record he was producing, and I was just really excited because I was such a huge fan of his, And then soon after that, he called me and said that they were starting to put this band together, and would I be interested? And I said, heck yeah. I didn't know any of the other guys, but I was ready. I was.
Oh yeah.
If Tim was in it, I was very excited to be part of it. And
he's a monster player.
Oh yeah. So we just started getting together right after that, and man, it's just kind of fell together really quick. And I remember we did a demo tape that summer. So this is probably like summer of '94, I think. And we took it to IBMA, and Tim and I kind of pitched it around to a bunch of labels, and Rebel Records was really excited about it. And so we did the first record, for like $0 practically. And but yeah, I remember we did it all in probably 3 or 4 days. And Rich Adler engineered it. You probably worked at his place there when he was over in Bellevue, Tennessee, by Nashville.
Little bitty room.
Yes, that's the place. I remember. Yeah, there was an overdub room downstairs that I did a lot of my stuff in. But anyway, so we just, and for me, I mean, when you grow up in California and you're into bluegrass, I mean, there's some great stuff out there, but it was just such a thrill for me to work with these guys that are really from the heartland of bluegrass, and just the way Tim plays guitar and the way Sean sings, and just to get to play with those sounds, was just a dream come true. I mean, I always wanted to be in a great band, and so it's definitely like, this is cool. I like this.
Well, I remember you guys, when you come out, you guys were winning everything at the IBMA, and it was just a big deal. You guys were the Rolling Stones of bluegrass back then,
man. Well, it was fun. I think we struck a chord, obviously, with the bluegrass audience.
You
did. When you hear Wayne and Sean sing together, it's just magic, and I think people.
You don't expect that voice to come out of Wayne,
It's powerful.
First time I saw him, he had a little gig with Darrell Webb, because he's from that area, coal miner. Yeah. And I saw this guy. He was playing electric bass then, and I'm thinking, man, let's see what this is going to do. So they kicked it off, and he was nailing the bass, and I said, well, he's a good bass player, And then he started singing, and it was like, man, how have I not heard of this guy? And the next thing I heard, he was with you guys, and it was just, man, you guys just had such a great group.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun, and it was a great gig. I was there for like 21 years, so I wouldn't have stayed that long if I wasn't enjoying it. So yeah, it was. It's just a great group of guys. It still is.
They are, and but things move on. You want to grow, and you and Trey are doing. You and Trey are knocking it out of the park right now with everything.
Well, thank you. We're having a great time, and it's funny that towards the end of my time in Blue Highway, I was just kind of feeling the urge to do something else, and it just, it was a great gig, but I was just feeling. I've always done, like on my solo albums, I've always done lots of different kinds of music, and I don't know, I was just really feeling like, trying something different.
Sure.
And then Trey moved to town around that time, and we started working together, and it was just really incredible, the way we clicked and the music we got into, and so yeah, it was just fortunate timing, you know. So yeah, it's been great, and it's been fun to. I don't know. Trey's just so talented and just such a humble guy, and so great to work with. It's just been a great experience. So I feel real lucky. I haven't had a lot of different gigs, but the ones I've had have been great. So I have no complaints.
Now, Trey played on, I guess, the last Blue Highway album that you were on. Is that right, or did you do one after that?
No, I think that was the last one I played on. Yeah, and that's how we kind of met. I mean, I knew him when he was a kid, and when I was playing with Earl Scruggs, Earl was a big fan of Trey's, and he would have him sit in with us, you know, whenever we played in East Tennessee. And then when we were doing that Blue Highway album, we had a song that we were going to send to a special guest, and so we needed somebody to sing a scratch vocal, and so the engineer, or the guy, Bobby Starnes, who owns the studio, said, well, let me call Trey Hensley. He'll do a great job, you know. And Trey came in the next day. I mean, he'd never even heard this song before. It was an original, and he just slayed it, you know. And
yeah, he's so talented.
Well, yeah. And we were kind of just focused on the rhythm tracks and just wanting, you know, the instrumental stuff sound good and everything. And then a couple days later, we all were like, that is a killer lead vocal track. And so we just decided to leave it, you know. We thought, well, it might help him, you know, get going. And it's just, honestly, it's just so good. We just thought anybody we call, they're not going to beat what that guy has put on there. So that was fun, you know.
But you should have called me. You know, I could.
Yeah, I know. Well, now I got your number, so.
Yeah, if you need something cleaned up, your car washed or something like that. But now, tell me, when you and Trey were out with Tommy Emmanuel, what that was like.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, when we first started doing it, you know, like full time, I just was talking to our agent one day, and I said, I just feel like this duo would be a great combo with Tommy Emmanuel, you know. And he said, you know what, my best friend just started managing him a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
He said, let me give him a call, and I said, okay, great. And then he called me back, you know, the next day, and he said they got, you know, 3 shows on the West Coast, and it's right exactly before your guys' West Coast trip starts. You want to do it? I said, heck yeah, let's do it. And the first show was in San Francisco, and we just kind of hit it off right off the bat. And his audience they're so fun, you know. And you know, he plays really nice theaters, and everything's, you know, first class. And so those first few shows just went great. And of course, we jammed at the end of each show, and the audience just loved it. And so we've just kind of clicked ever since then, and yeah, we just did an EP with him that gets released on May 7th.
Cool.
Yeah, it's called Accomplices, and then we're doing the Opry with him next weekend, and then a special show at Third and Lindsley. So, and I think we're going to do some more stuff this summer, and maybe later in the year. So yeah,
That's cool.
He is definitely a hero of ours, and you know, kind of a mentor in that. I don't know, he just does it the right way. You know, he's a brilliant technician, a very soulful musician, and then his show is just so great. You know, you're just smiling, and his love for the guitar just comes out of that guitar and just makes you feel good. So it's inspiring to work with somebody like that. We love it.
Him and Trey, I'm sure, had a big time, both being guitar players. That's really cool.
Well, I remember one night we also did a run with him and David Grisman. They had an album come out a few years ago, and so it's one of the last nights, and it was really late on the bus, and Trey and Tommy started playing. And there's a Charlie Parker song called Donna Lee, and it's really a bear. I mean, it's just a really difficult melody on any instrument. And Trey just learned it just like super fast, you know, and he just played the heck out of it. So they started playing that, and I mean, Trey was just burning it up. And when it was done, Tommy just stood up and shook his hand and said, "My friend, you are one of the best guitar players on the planet." And so that was. Yeah, so those guys they're both a couple of Energizer bunnies, you know, they just kind of feed off each other.
How old was Trey when you guys started playing together?
He moved here. I think he moved to Nashville like 2014 or 15.
Okay.
So yeah, he was probably like 24 or something like that. I'm not
Wow.
sure.
I'll tell you what, he just like you, man. I mean, y'all got a good career starting off early. You know.
Well, when when we first started playing here, I just couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Hmm.
He just never missed a note with his singing or his guitar playing. I mean, he's one of the most talented people I've ever worked with.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and just great to work with. And we've been starting on our next record, and we just had a meeting with our producer yesterday, kind of narrowing down the
Hmm.
material, and we've been writing a lot this year. Since we've been home more.
Hmm.
Our managers hooked us up with all these great Nashville songwriters, so we did a lot of Zoom writing sessions,
Heck
and
yeah.
yeah, we've got a ton. So I think the next record's going to be mostly originals, and
Hmm.
yeah, we got a lot of great songs to choose from, and that's something new for me. I mean, Trey and I have wrote a little bit together, but I mean, I've done instrumental stuff, but not so much lyric stuff.
Yeah. I'm trying to get into
So
that now. I know exactly where you're at because I hear all this stuff in my head. I just don't know how to put it down on paper. And
yeah,
you have to get with
yeah.
somebody that's done it, and it makes a difference.
Yes, and it's a little like these the first ones we did. It's just kind of scary to meet with somebody and have nothing, but it's
Hmm.
such a great. Usually, just talk for 45 minutes, and
Hmm.
then somebody says something funny, and then oh, okay, let's write that down,
Hmm.
and then of course, if you're writing with good people, it's easier,
Makes a difference, yeah.
but yeah, and then it was very rewarding just to have something, one or two things done at the end of the time, and so just felt like really creating something from nothing. So I
Hmm.
enjoyed that process, and I guess I hadn't really done it much before, so I didn't know if I could do it, but yeah, I'm really proud
I tell you what, you'll do well
that
with it
we've.
because you're just so musical. I know you'll do well.
Well, and this too. When you're a picker, I mean, we're not just dobro players. I mean, you and I we're listening to the guitar player, we're listening to the singer, we're listening to the lyrics,
Hmm.
and so, you and I have listened to every note of these certain records, and so we're
Hmm.
not just. Of course, we're loving the dobro parts, but yeah, it's so I think all that listening over those years pays off, and it's there when you want to make a withdrawal, so to speak, on that
Exactly.
knowledge. And so even though we're instrumentalists primarily, I know that we're listening to every word that Tony Rice sang, and
Hmm.
every
Guitar
string that
lick.
band that. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's fun to sort of draw on that stuff that maybe you didn't think you had.
I used to. I had Tom Gray on a few weeks back, and
Right
we
on.
and we were talking about the seldom scene, and I remember when I got the Cellar Door album. It's probably the same with you. I do everything
Mm-hmm.
from the first person screaming to where people
Yep.
would scream at Duffy when he would hit
Yep.
these little turns, and all that stuff, and it gets to be almost like I'd throw those albums on, and it was almost just really cool to listen to. What was funny with me is I used to put on headphones and practice where I couldn't hear myself. I don't know if you ever done this, but I do it where I couldn't hear myself because what would happen was it helped me get in the flow of what was playing. Otherwise, I'm sitting here kind of chunking, trying to find these notes, and I'm not getting the flow. And then once I get the
Mm-hmm.
flow, I'd pull my headphones off and start finding the correct notes, which I knew where most of them were, but just not hearing myself. And I remember uh, getting this one solo down off the Seldom Scene. I'm wanting to think it was probably a Panhandle Country, maybe. And
Oh yeah.
I was learning that, and I thought, this is feeling good. I'm knocking it on out and pulled my headphones off, and it sounded like, good God, What in the world? Keep your headphones off. So I took my headphones off, and I learned, learned that he wasn't playing it in A flat. He was playing it in C. Wasn't that bad, but it was funny because you just learn, and it's like you said, Tony Rice. Even though we're dobro players, I used to always tell people that the things I listen to, and here I am telling you stuff, man, and you're the dang king, dobro king. I would sit and listen, because a lot of people sit and they'll play note for note, and I had did that. I had learned these solos note for note. And then when I go to jam sessions, they weren't playing the songs I learned note for note. They weren't playing Tennessee Stud or Green Slip. They were playing Blue Ridge Cabin Home and stuff like that. So I started making a point, and I always have told people, if you run out of ideas, because that was it. If I hadn't heard Mike Aldridge play it, I didn't know how to play it. If it was,
I was in the same boat.
And I got where I started listening instead of listening to Mike all the time. I listened to Mike all the time and Douglas all the time, but I got where I would really pay attention to mandolin players, guitar players, and fiddle players, how they transition between notes, and I started learning how to transition like these other instruments instead of like Mike Aldridge always did. And it kind of opened so much stuff up listening to Tony's transitions from C to D or back. And same with JD on the banjo. I could listen to his transitions, because the dobro's tuned so much like a banjo. It was like a whole new world of stuff.
Man, I had a very similar experience. It's like I knew everything Mike played on his records, and then I knew a lot of Jerry Douglas stuff. But if somebody called a song that wasn't on those records, I didn't have much to say, and I remember wanting to figure out how the heck to play Jerusalem Ridge, because there's a song that people jam on, so it's like, okay, well, and then I found it. Carl Jackson did some great records back in the 80s, and Jerry Douglas was on this one, and it said Jerusalem Ridge, and it had him listed as playing on that. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to buy this and figure out how to play Jerusalem Ridge on the dobro. I took it home, and I was so mad because he didn't get a dobro solo. He just played fills on it,
Oh, yeah.
And so, oh, man, now I'm going to have to do this, work on this myself. But eventually figured it out. But it's, and I think at some point, and you probably did this too, we learn by imitating, and I think that's how most people learn, not just bluegrass, but all kinds of music, and I think it really educates your ear, it tunes your ear in really, really closely to being able to hear, what strings are being picked or whatever. And, but so imitating is a great way to start, but at some point you just get, you'd think, well, this is great. I know how Mike Aldridge would play this song, but how would I play this song?
That's exactly
right. And that's
a
whole different ball game, it's a whole different mindset and challenge, and so, but it was interesting to me. I knew it was important, even just as a kid. I never wanted to play like anybody else. I wanted to have my own sound. For some reason, even as a teenager, I knew that well, I don't know, but that was important to me, even as a kid. So I don't know where I got that from, but so I started just like you, stealing from the mandolin and stealing from the banjo and the fiddles, and I still do that. To this day. So yeah.
Well, I just think, I've told people this before. You can learn Mike Aldridge note for note, but when you go out, if you stood out beside Mike Aldridge, he's going to kill you, because that's his stuff, and he knows all the inflections. And it's the same way. Jerry Douglas, you can learn whatever songs it is, Cincinnati Rag or any of that stuff. But if you go stand beside him and try to play it, it's going to be, it's going to be Jerry's song because that, and that's why I think it's so important to branch off and start finding your own licks and your own wave.
And I think there's it's sort of like a different energy source, when you're playing something you've learned as opposed to improvising from nothing. You're using a different part of your brain probably, because you're using your memory when you're playing something that you've learned from somebody else, note for note. And when you improvise, it just comes from some other place, and so and I think I realized that early on too. Like, I think that's why, that's what I liked about Jerry Douglas's playing or Tony Rice's playing was I could tell that they were improvising. They didn't know. They were surprising themselves.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's the kind of musician that I wanted to be. And so I think that's part of it is walking the plank and improvising and Tony, of course, was really into that and I got to play with him a lot, which was so great, and I would always pick his brain about music or how he made those great records or whatever. It was just great. I feel like I learned a lot just from hanging out with him.
Oh yeah, Tony. I was around him a lot because he and Richard Bennett hung out and traded watches and stuff. and I played a few shows with him here and there. Actually got to do a New South reunion that Ricky was at and everybody and Tony and all. It was cool doing that. But I first heard Jerry, I guess, in Boone Creek days of 1977, and what I liked about every one of those guys, and me and Al and Bobby talk about this a lot. We always credit Jerry for what he does and Balkan and all, but we always talk about old Skaggs, new Skaggs, or number one Skaggs, number two Skaggs, because Ricky's style changed, I guess, somewhere to a more Monroe. But when he was with Boone Creek, I don't know what it is. Ricky's a religious guy. I'd always tell Alan, I said, man, I think the devil got into him for just a little bit there because I was hearing some. Ricky was playing stuff that I had never heard, and it was just so.
Well, he had all that swingy. I think he was listening to Django, and then his fiddle playing was like Vassar Clements. He was so into Vassar.
Oh God, yeah.
And so, I agree. And boy, his singing was so amazing. And, one of my favorite records is the Emmylou Harris, Roses in the Snow.
Heck yeah, he produced that, didn't he?
Well, I don't, but I'm sure he did. He's probably not credited, but.
Credited, yeah.
He's got a big footprint on that album.
Yeah. And
his voice was so warm and just blended with her, and she was singing great there.
Gosh, yeah.
Anyway, that's one of my favorite records, and
me too.
It's fun to hear Tony Rice and Albert Lee trading licks on the same song. And I think Emmylou, she's done so many different things, great. But I always love that era of her music. It's pretty amazing.
Me too, and the album she had when Ricky was in the band. The cut they did on Mill Worker was Ricky, man, he sang notes that I had never heard, and it was, people hear notes and say, well, that's got to be easier to sing that than it is to play it on an instrument, and I don't know about that. Go try to sing along with Ricky on some of that Boone Creek stuff because he was so unpredictable. You didn't know where he was going, and he would hit you, and it was like, geez,
and so effortless, man. That second record that Boone Creek did just always blew my mind. And then Steve Bryant playing all that funky bass, man, that was just took it to another planet, Loved it.
I remember when they hired Steve because they were going through bass players, and they had a guy named Earl Grigsby, and Earl had this big leather floppy hat, and I don't know, I always said he had Christmas ornaments hanging off of it. I don't know what it was, but he was pretty simple player, yet pretty good. And then I think they got a guy named Tommy Huff after that. And I don't know if you heard of Huff. Huff was a bad boy on the bass, and then he got killed on a motorcycle. And
Wow.
they brought in somebody else, and then I remember the night that Skaggs, we were talking because we'd always sit at the front table and eat. I'd sit with the band, and Ricky said, "Well, we got a new bass player in tonight," and said, "How's he doing?" And Ricky says, "Well, he's gonna really be good. We're just trying to settle him down a little bit." And I'm thinking, okay. And I remember he came in that night, man, and he just killed it. He was, because all those guys were so musical, and you add in all that, and then you add in Wes Golden, and
yes,
I got to tell you a funny story. I don't know if you've heard this, but Jerry Douglas had told me this some time back that Boone Creek had a van. I guess that it probably belonged to Wes or one of them at the time, and they got finished playing and they were going somewhere else, so they didn't have time to eat in. So they run in some restaurant, Italian restaurant, and they get a bunch of food. Okay, so Ricky's driving, and they're all eating, and something happened. I don't know what it was, but Jerry said Ricky always used to be bad about bumper riding, and said he was right on his car. Well, he rear-ended him, and all this pasta went in Jerry's face and box and all that, and said the woman that got rear-ended jumped out of the car and looked in the back, and her husband said, "Oh my God, their brains are hanging out because they all had pasta on their face." And
oh, that's great.
Yeah, but I loved hearing those guys, and I remember the day they split up, man, I was so let down. I didn't think I'd ever play again. And then time moves on, and I heard Ricky with the Whites, and I said, "Oh yeah, here's Ricky and Jerry. It's going to be okay," but
well, I mean, that's an amazing generation of musicians. Those guys were all like Mount Rushmore at my house.
Me too,
growing
buddy.
up.
Me too.
And it's just just that all those guys were getting together at that time and just created all this great stuff that got us fired up.
Oh yeah, got us inspired. You don't realize. I realize looking at you, I know this, but so many people that it's the same effect that these younger guys that's looking at the new players, not the new players, I don't mean like that, but the next generation of players.
Oh, yeah.
I consider, Josh Graves and all those guys, of course, first generation, and I definitely think that, we'd all be the next generation after that, and it's amazing all these young kids that are coming along, like Gavin Largent, and he's not a kid anymore, but I remember Corey Walker, because Corey's one of my buddies from back when he was 5-6 years old, and Corey's brother, Jared, he plays with Billy Strings now. And
great player,
he is, and it was so funny because I remember trying to help them do their first album. I helped them put together 2 albums.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Well, it was funny because every time Corey would go around Jared, he would start tuning Jared's mandolin, and Jared would be holding it. And David, their dad, always would say, "I wish Corey quit doing that. He's making it hard on Jared." And I always said, "Oh, Jared will be okay one day." And dang, you're right. He's one of the best players out there.
Yeah, that is a talented family. Trey and I did a show with them down in Florida years ago.
Yeah.
And they all came in and sat in with us. And then they have a younger brother that plays guitar.
Tyler.
He's great too.
Tyler got smart. He didn't play. He played around, but he went to he graduated from University of Florida. Then he went to Vanderbilt and got his MBA, And I said, he's going to make more money than all you guys are doing that, with a pen,
Well, it's a talented family. Yeah, I think I met Corey when he was playing with Sierra Hull, and that was such a great band. And actually, I played with them. We were all playing up in Alaska or the Yukon, actually, at White Horse Festival.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
And I filled in for somebody. I don't know, maybe their fiddle player wasn't there or something. So I got to play with Sierra's band that whole weekend. That was just, man, great groove. Her time is amazing, and Corey's is also. And so, that was a lot of fun. I just worked with Corey last week. We played a lot of sessions together here in town, and very talented guy, and great dobro player, too. I mean, he plays everything.
Oh, he does. Good guitar player, too.
Yeah.
Corey, I'll tell you a funny story on him. I did Nash camp one time, and we're going to talk about your camp in just a minute. But I did Nash camp one time, and Corey's granddad's name was Marlin, and he was a retired dentist, and Marlin loved the dobro, so he come to Nash camp, and he brought like 3 dobros with him. He just got a shear horn, but he brought another beard and something else. So anyway, I'm teaching class, and Cindy Sinclair, who's over the camp, come in and said, "Can I bring a young guy into your dobro class?" And I said, "I guess so. Is he signed in?" And she said, "No, he's disrupting the banjo class." And I thought, I don't want him over in my class to be doing that. And I ain't going to tell you who the teacher is, but she said the teacher has him in the corner having Corey show him licks, and the class are sitting over here rolling their thumbs like we're in class. So Corey come into my class, and I asked him, I said, "Corey, have you ever messed with a dobro or anything?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "How much have you done?" And he said, "Well, I took Grandpa's and set it off the couch one time." And I said, "That's not messing with it. That's moving it." So anyway, he borrowed his Grandpa's beard, and he was in 5 days. And I had dobro players been playing a long time, and Corey at the end of the week was hands down the best dobro player that left there. And but these kids, man, it's just I don't know. I think sometimes it's video games that they figure out all these paths and things, then they apply it over to where it fits on strings or something, because they're doing something that I wouldn't want to be a kid starting into it right now.
It's funny, just thinking about what sets you off, and what it's almost like there's a pre-knowledge, because I remember I met Mike Witcher when he was 12.
Yeah, little boy.
And I think Blue Highway had just started, and maybe our first summer or two, and we were playing out in Pasadena, and Mike's dad was emceeing, and he said, "Hey, my son just started playing dobro recently. Would you show him a few things?" "Oh yeah, I'd be happy to," So Mike comes backstage, and I just would play something, and he'd immediately play it back, and I'd play something else. "Hey, that's great, man. Like, how many years you've been playing?" And he said, "Well, I just picked it up about a month ago." Like, oh, okay. But it almost is like there's a pre-knowledge, and it's weird, and it's weird. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to look at some people always write in on here. I'm going to see if you have any messages, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about your camp in Nashville, Reso Summit.
Yeah.
And talk about that and how people can get involved to get how they can come down there. I mean, you probably already, are you having it this year now?
We're still not sure about this year. We haven't quite made a decision yet.
Yeah. Do you know when you'll be deciding on that or anything?
Sometime soon.
Well, we'll talk about that and where they can find it on your website and everything. But let me go down through here. I got some people here that's just tuned on. Michael Shoemaker, Cindy Duncan, my buddy Travis Greer, that was our first bass player. Let me think about this. Yeah, he was our first bass player. Oh, he wasn't. He was our third bass player with Grasstown. really started that. Good guy. Gerald Mullins, a guy I could tell you about Gerald. I went to school with this guy, and he become one of my very best friends when I was probably in the fourth grade. Well, I never saw him again. He moved out and never knew where he went or anything. So I'm playing with J.D. Crowe up in Kentucky, and this guy comes around and introduces me, and it's Gerald that I hadn't seen since fourth grade. And I said, "Hey man, what you over here for?" And he says, "Well, I come over here to get Crow to sign my banjo and all." I'm thinking, man, really, you're a banjo player now? I hadn't seen him.
Yeah.
And he said that it was a surprise because he didn't know I was working with Crow, and I had no idea this guy was a banjo player. But Gerald's been a good friend to me, so it's glad to have him on. And me and you got a buddy on right now, our old Bobby Wright.
Oh yeah, Mr. Wright.
He is Mr. Wright. When it comes to setups, man, that guy is he knows his stuff, and Bobby's been a good friend.
He is amazing.
Yes, he is. He's learned all these little things. It's just so much different than what I've been used to. All these little tricks, and I guess that's why I don't try to set them up. I'm not good at it. I jinx anything I do, even if it's just taking a couple of screws out of the cover plate. I jinx it.
Me too. I do not enjoy setting up my guitar. I actually had to do some setup a few weeks ago, and it came out okay, but I do not enjoy it.
Well, being around people like Bobby Wright and stuff, you learn things at this point in their life and look back and say, God, I've been doing it all totally wrong. So you do learn every time I'm around Bobby, I learn a little bit of something. But
yes,
he's got the ear. Let's see, Jeanette Wade is on. Glad to have you. Cindy Spear, no worries. Cindy Spear too. Okay, let me keep going down. Paul Schimminger's on tonight. We know that rascal.
Oh yeah, newly retired.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man. Paul. I got you on my list to call, and
he's the best, ain't he? I mean, Paul.
Yeah, he's the coolest.
I hate he retired. I wish he would have stayed there till he was about 90 years old, or something. The new guy, I'm sure, will do good, but Paul's always going to have a special place with me because he's just he was always more than the director of the IBMA. He was just everybody's friend, and he loved music. And,
his heart was in it, and still is in it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're talking about him like he's at the funeral home for a minute.
You need somebody that will, just plow on. Everybody's gonna be throwing stuff at you, but you just gotta keep going forward and
you really do, yeah.
Do what you think is right, So nice to have you on, Paul.
Yeah, Paul's a dandy, good friend. But the IBMA right now, Paul really did so much while he was there, and I just hope that they kind of keep it on the same coast. By coast, not east or west, but I mean, I guess the same level where it just kind of stays rolling smooth. He's got it good,
Well, he was telling me at the award show, of course, which was weird this year, because of the the remote style. But we were talking, I guess it was during rehearsal the day before, and he was, very excited about. Sam Bush had asked him to bring in, Newgrass Revival to the Hall of Fame, and he said, Paul, you should get somebody else, Sam said, no, you get what we do, man. It'd be great to have you. So, of course, they had Garth Brooks come also, which was great, but but I thought Paul nailed it with his induction speech. And I mean, talking about heroes, Newgrass Revival, those guys were my Beatles, when I was a kid.
And
they would just come, in California, there's not a ton of festivals, but the ones they have are really good. And there was one called Strawberry Music Festival right outside of Yosemite National Park. Beautiful setting, And I grew up going to that one. I think we went to the first one in 80 or 81. And so Newgrass would just come and just blow everybody's mind, and just I would get so fired up. I'd just stay up all night playing music, just kind of feeding off that energy that they were throwing out. But anyway, yeah.
They were like, I always talked about the Newgrass Revival. They were highly caffeinated. When they hit the stage, they were wide open. And then when John Cowan came in, at my age and stuff, I went to see them in a club, and they scared the crap out of me because they were so on fire with their music and stuff. And I'm like you, I've got to know all of them well since then. And Bela, it was funny. Bela was playing with a band called Spectrum. Do you remember those guys with?
Oh yeah, Jimmy Gaudreau.
Yeah, Schatz.
Glenn Lawson. Yeah.
Lawson. Well, they come into town one time and played a little place called Buddy's Barbecue, and had no place to stay, and so they came and stayed out in my mom's house.
I love it.
It was cool because Bela come through the house checking everything out, and my mom's house stayed really clean because she was, my mom was like, I look better now, like my grandma was, how she'd keep everything clean. Well, Bela come through, and he still wanted a hotel room, so they took him to a hotel room, and the rest of the guys stayed there all night long and jammed. And my mom had to go to work like at 6 a.m. the next morning, and they were totally fired up there picking. But John, John, man, he has just really become a good friend and stuff. And I know it's the same to you. John is one of the coolest people and one of the greatest singers I've ever heard. And,
I know. Just. In fact, I just heard Travis Tritt today on the radio. Great Day to Be Alive.
Oh yeah.
And that's John killing the tenor vocal on there, and that you always hear. You can tell when it's him.
Oh, it is.
It's awesome. And I tell you, on a big country hit like that, they usually don't do that. They'll get somebody who's not real recognizable because they don't. Usually, the star doesn't want anything to pull away from what they're doing.
Yeah.
So thank you, Travis Tritt, for having John Cowan on there.
Yeah.
But it's just a sound that you just go, I know who that is, man.
Immediately.
Awesome.
Well, I had John on the show a few weeks back, and I was talking to him about calling Baton Rouge.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that Garth liked it so much that Garth was upset because it didn't win any awards. And so Garth told him, he said, hey, I'm going to cut that thing again, and I want you guys to be on it. And said, we will get some money this time. And they did, and John said that everybody come out really good on that. And so
that's great.
Said that he credited them on the album and everything. So, Garth is a cool guy. From what I've heard, and it's good because Garth used to get trashed quite a bit over stuff, and Steve Warner told me one of the coolest stories on Garth when Steve's mom had passed, and him and Garth were all tight, so he said Garth didn't come to the funeral or anything, and said that. As the funeral procession left town and stuff, they got about 2 miles out of town and said that Garth and Tricia was standing beside the road, and Garth took his hat off till they all passed, and then he left. And so Steve said he called him like a day later and said, man, where was you at? And stuff. I was wanting to see you. And Garth said, this wasn't about me. This was about your mom. And he said, I flew in to can't remember the name of his town. I think Steve was up around Evansville or Noblesville, where he's from, and so Garth apparently flew into a little local airport, and Steve said I was telling him, man, I wish this means a lot and stuff, and said Garth never would, say anything, but funny, it said Garth said, hey, I would do this for you. It said, you guys really have a rough airport to fly into. said I thought I was going to tear my knee joints up, and Steve said that Garth got back home and donated a whole bunch of money. I don't know what it was to that airport to put down new runways. And I mean, a bluegrass guy, the best you can do is, send them a CD or something. But Garth's a whole different machine. And
I worked with Garth Brooks one time, and he was producing an album, and I was doing an overdub. And he was so nice. He literally carried my guitars out to my car for me.
I've heard that about him. It's good when you hear people like that are really good, and then you see these people that's trying to get started, and they're such jerks, and it's like you need to go take the Garth method.
Let's talk about some of those jerks, Phil.
You talk about the first one, and I'll bring up the second one. I'll mention one. I won't tell you. I can't say his name because he's pretty popular, but I knew this guy real good. I mean, I'm not saying I went to his house or anything, but the first time I met him, he knew me, I knew him, and we flew on a plane, and he wanted me to show his whole band a Carlton case, what they looked like, and he told them all to get a Carlton case. And what was funny is when I opened it up, my neck was broke out of my guitar, and he goes, cancel that. So anyway, he was just real nice. Well, I get to the Opry one night, and here he is, and I've seen him several times, and he's real good. So I just come over and I said, hey, blank, blank, how you doing? And he goes, I'm doing good, like that. And I said, can I get a picture with you? He goes, no, not right now. We can't do that. And he just kind of blew by. And I thought, you're backstage at the Opry. It ain't like people's going to gurm you to death because there's just a few people they let back there. But then I saw him again, and he was like really nice. And it's like, maybe he was on something. I don't know.
Well, you never know. I think especially before people go on stage, they can be in a different frame of mind. I mean, you know how it is. I mean, I know. Yeah, no, you're on the road and you haven't eaten in a day, and but yeah, that's funny.
In his defense, he had just come off stage, so he was
probably on another planet.
Yeah, he was all done at that time. But it's funny. But yeah, there's me and you hear all these stories from people that worked with people and stuff, and it's. It's funny, the people sometimes that the fans like the most are some of the ones that, it's like, wow, I kind of stay clear of them. But the good thing in bluegrass is there's not a whole lot of people like that. Most people are pretty much down to earth and this stuff that you can go approach them and it's kind of funny. People will come, to me sometime and say, Mr. Ledbetter, you got just a minute? And it's like, man, listen, I'm not Mr. Ledbetter. Call me Phil, and I got whatever time you need, what you need.
Yeah, that's a good.
People was nice to us growing up, so I want to return it.
Well, I think that's something that we hear in the music, and that's something that appealed to us and appeals to us. Even as players. There was in bluegrass, it ain't about the show,
No.
It's about the music and can you deliver. And, I was listening to a new release from Ralph Stanley with Larry Sparks, like from 1969 out in Seattle. And Trey sent it to me, and it's like, oh my God. So I've heard, some of I've heard the records that Larry did with Ralph. But I never heard any of the live stuff. Sure. And anyway, and Curly Ray Klein is just absolutely on fire. But yeah, I mean, you don't listen to that for the light show, the laser light show. No. You listen to it because it blows your mind, and it makes you think of things, or it makes you feel things, And even today, I'm just like, that's still what's interesting to me, I mean, it's notes that happen, between people, and we talked about Tony Rice earlier, but to me, that's what's so special about those records is he somehow connected all those great musicians and made them sound even better, you know, and just made this thing sound like one thing. And so it still blows my mind, you know. So
exactly.
But that's what I love about bluegrass and you know, anything real, you know. It's just when you hear, you can just tell when it's not real, and I like music that's real. And
you know, it's funny now. Bluegrass people, of course, we all know this. You know, people come up and they'll say, "Well, thing I like about bluegrass music is they don't do any overdubbing and that stuff." Well, the bad records they don't, but the good records they do. You have to do things a little bit. You know this. I hear things and it just bothers me. And the next time we get back in the studio, I've got my numbers. Here at 144, here at one so-so.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to this note. And people don't realize that. You know, one time Crow told me, I can't remember what it was, but it's one of the album band projects, and JD says, Phil, that album right there, we did it and did not have one overdub. And I asked Tony Rice about that, and I said, Tony, I heard JD said this, and Tony goes, "Oh, bleep, 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 bleep." I remember overdubbing, and I remember him overdubbing. So I brought that up to JD, and he says, "Well, Tony, he wasn't paying no attention." And I said, "Okay." Then I told Tony about that, and he laughed, and he says, "I guess JD wasn't, because he'd get done, he'd go in the back and drink coffee." So, people that I've seen so many people brag because they don't do an overdub, and I just think, you know, I would rather have an overdub on a record where the record sounds really good. I mean, we're not doing like country music people do. We're just going in and playing it again. I would much rather have a record like that than something that's really out of tune or bad notes and say,
well, you know what, you know, and this is something that I learned, you know, from talking to Tony Rice about his records. And, you know, for the most part, I think those records were cut live, you know, but what they would do is they would splice between takes. Right. So let's say they did, you know, 3 takes of Blue Ridge Cabin Home or whatever. Right. And the banjo had a missed note in the last solo, and splice it from a take where the banjo solo was better, and cut it together. And actually, that's the way I've done a lot of my solo albums, and that's the way Trey and I work. I mean, that first record he and I did, we cut it in 2 days, and we literally sat in a circle, and we didn't overdub anything, you know. And that's just how good a singer he is, you know. And we've done 3 records, and we've never fixed anything on him.
Man, well, I can believe that.
So we like to record live as much as possible. Sure. And that's one of the things I like about working with Trey, is we're kind of on the same page.
And it's easier with just 2 guys too, with that, where you can put it together and you practiced and played with each other so much, you kind of know where the guy's going with stuff, you know?
Well, I think, and that's what you're hearing, you know, like when you hear that first Grisman album, you know, those guys were playing together 8 hours a day, you know?
Yeah, sure.
But even having said that, you know, Tony told me that he said Bill Wolf deserves a lot of credit for that album because he edited it all together, you know? So he was cutting solos and grabbing a note from a fiddle thing here and sticking it in. And so, yeah, I mean, they didn't sit down and it just poured out perfect like that. I mean, it took a lot of work. But I like when you edit that way, because when you go in and overdub, you know, you can lose some of that energy. It's hard to get that nervousness back or the energy or whatever. And so when I'm producing or, you know, in control of it, I definitely lean towards going for a live thing, because I just think that's what we like about our favorite records.
More stuff, right.
Yeah, and there's a humanity to it. There's a vibe, you know, when people are sitting right next to each other that you can't, you know. So, but you know, there's lots of ways to skin the cat. But But I do lean towards the live thing for sure. If I'm in charge of the recording.
The last couple of things that I've done, we did kind of similar to that. We laid down about 3 tracks and went and did a pick and choose on stuff, because you still had that energy going like you're talking about, because it's hard on a fast tune that it starts and then you have to just pick up immediately firing away. You just don't have the same attack or something, I don't think.
No, you're in a totally different frame of mind. I mean, your brain is in a different area.
Definitely.
Different part of your brain is lit up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's do this. Let me look at a couple other people, and then we're going to talk about Reso Summit, and then I'm going to let you get out of here, because I appreciate you calling in tonight, Rob.
Hey, man, this is fun. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. One of my favorite people, Phil.
Buddy, you're the same back, man.
And I'm glad you're doing this because you're hilarious, and you need
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. You
are the David Letterman of bluegrass. Now other people can enjoy it on the internet, so this is good.
I'm gonna get this thing over to Zoom pretty soon, because I think it'd be fun to be able to see both people on here.
Heck yeah.
And then it'll really be popping when we get that going. But I want to go down just a little bit, and then we're going to talk. My buddy Tracy Milligan Shipley, she's on here quite a bit now. I'm going to tell you, because you don't know her, Rob, but the day I went in for my first cancer treatment, it's been 10 years ago, she was my nurse.
Oh, my gosh.
And she's still my nurse today. She's changed hospitals. And when I lost track of her, and then I started going to UT, and I walked in, there she was. So she tunes in. She's took good care of me. She's got to be just a dear friend, almost like family. So
bless you, Tracy. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, she's a great nurse. She really is a great person too. Let's see. Let me go down. Barbara Johnson said, "Hello, Phil. Hope everything's well." Hello, Phil. We got a. While I'm reading these real quickly, if there's any questions you want to ask Rob, I may just ask them for you, just a few things, so we don't have to do that, but some stuff to help you with a little bit. John Deal said, been a Rob Ickes fan for years, such a great musician. Could you ask him about being a member of the Tony Rice unit and how that came about? Thanks, Phil. I think we've talked about a lot of that, but how did it come about when you started playing with the unit?
I ran into him at IBMA one year, and him and Tim Stafford were working on Tony's book, the biography, and he said, "Hey, you have an open invitation anytime you want to play with the unit. You just jump up on stage, And I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me? I'm there, So it was great. It was a very, very loose arrangement, but I made every show I could because, again, he's probably my ultimate hero, musically. And it was funny because later when I joined, it was all instrumental. And Ricky Simpkins and Wyatt and Bryn often played bass and different bass players.
She lives in town here.
That's right. Yeah. Bryn is great. She's great. So she was there for a lot of shows. And then later, Josh Williams came and was playing mandolin and singing. So it was great that we could do some vocals. And one time, Josh was saying, "Man, this is great, but I wish we'd rehearse." Because when you play with Tony, you never rehearse. You just go out and do it. You don't even know what you're going to play. But of course, we all know every song because we grew up, playing.
Sure.
And so Josh is like, "I don't know, we just kind of show up and play and then go, and there's no rehearsal." And I'm like, "Man, that's the great thing about this gig. You just show up, and you get to play with Tony Rice, and then you go home. It doesn't get better than that." But yeah. So, and I think Tony, he was a big Blue Highway fan, and I think he was a fan of my solo albums. He's a jazz head like I am, so we would talk about our jazz heroes. But yeah, that was really a thrill. And I did an album with a piano player a few years ago, and it's just dobro and piano on the whole album.
Right.
And Robinella sings a few songs on there too. She just absolutely destroyed it.
She's from here, and she's a relative of mine.
Oh, that's right. I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I think maybe one of my dad's aunts or something were sisters, and she's a daughter. I don't know, but
yeah. Well, she is so talented and just amazing. But. So I gave Tony a copy of it when it came out, and he called me a couple of days later, and he just said, he just loved the record and we had a great talk. So that just made me feel really good, because I don't know, I guess that's been an interest of mine, is taking the dobro and putting it into different music forms and seeing what happens,
You've done well with it.
Well, it's. I think the dobro can do whatever you want to do, and so. But it was scary, doing some of these kind of jazz things, because I didn't play with these guys a lot, and I just kind of was hearing these sounds in my head, and so I'd fly out to California and we'd knock it out, and just to play with some great jazz players like that just blew my mind. So yeah, it was very inspiring.
That's really cool. I'll tell you. As I'm going down here, Jared Hall, you know Jared real well.
Oh yeah, good to see you, Jared.
Yeah, he does a good job on these bad boys right here. So pick boxes, you got one, I know.
Oh yeah, those are great. Slide compartment.
Yep, I use those, and you can get in touch with Jared if you want to buy one of those. If anybody's out there listening. And man, here's another one of my big buddies here. First, I'll say Cindy Spears said, love Rob and Trey. So that's good.
But we love you, Cindy.
Your other buddy here, Monster Players on, Greg Booth. And he said, hi, Phil and Rob, y'all are the best. Right. Miss you both. That guy's playing full.
Oh, yeah, I love Greg. Yeah, Greg started out as a student at Reso Summit, and we quickly changed him into a faculty member the next year. So yeah,
he was a really good steel player before, I guess, because he told me that he had moved to Alaska and met this girl, and they moved up, and he was playing steel like at every bar in town, which where he was at. There was only like 3, but he played a lot. But man, that guy now, dobro players, you got so many dobro players trying to sound like everybody else, and Greg don't sound like anybody else when you hear him. I mean,
yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of dobro players maybe move on to pedal steel, but you don't hear the other way around too often.
No.
So I think that speaks highly of him for sure.
Oh yeah, man, he's great. He's great. I used to have a buddy in Nashville. I mean, he's still a buddy, but he's my neighbor, Tommy White, that plays steel at the Opry. And Tommy lived a couple of roads over from me, and he was playing dobro with the Whites. And
he's killer.
Oh, he is, man. He took a job with the Osborne brothers and went out for a couple of weeks, and he came back. I said, how you liking a gig? He goes, man, I ain't really handling this bluegrass. I don't know it very good. And next thing I knew, he's back on steel, doing all these things. And then the Whites started using the steel a lot more after that. But yeah, he's a playing machine.
Oh man, one of the best.
Yeah, no doubt. But Greg Booth, glad to hear you. You know, Greg, I want to say this real quick. I'm working on this dobro album, Rob, and you and Josh Swift played a track on it. Greg Booth has. We just mastered that. That thing's going to be out in the middle of June.
Very good.
We have 25 players and 23 tracks, and the cool thing about it, I wrote a little. You're the only one I really mentioned in my liner note, and I don't remember how it went, but I'm talking about, because this isn't going to be a Great Dobro Sessions album. This is a whole different thing. But I mentioned in there about the Great Dobro Sessions, and I said a lot of the older players, the legends we knew. I said, and then a young guy from California named Rob Ickes. And then it says 25 years later, we do this album, and I said Rob's one of the most, if not the most, awarded dobro players with 23 or with 13 IBMA awards. And I just thought that was cool because you could look at 25 years back when you did the great dobro sessions, and then boom, you've made a big difference in the dobro in 25 years for so many people, since then.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, just when you're growing up and you got your heroes and you're listening to these records, just to have played with a lot of my heroes and to have been able to do this for a living is just blows my mind. I feel very, very fortunate, and so it's just a cool instrument, and it's great to talk to people that this instrument has changed their lives also. So it's all about the dobro.
It really is. And right now, I wouldn't want to be coming along right now. I would be unemployed. I mean, all these new dobro players, it's unreal what they're doing. And it's good because they're really pushing that instrument really hard right now. And there's some sounds coming out of that I've not ever heard. And it's amazing. It
is, and that's that's what I like about the dobro is wherever you take it, it can handle it. You can take it to the moon and back, and it'll be able to handle it.
And you've done that many times. I mean, you're not old. I mean, at all, but you're in. It's funny. Like I was talking about first generation players, and here you go, and this is me. I don't care who's out there now. You're still my favorite player to listen to.
Oh my gosh! Well, that means a lot, Phil. I'm honored.
Oh man, I'm serious about that. I always love because you're so creative. I love the stuff with you and Trey, and it's really, really good stuff. So I'm gonna flip on down here. We're gonna talk Reso Summit. Zeke Button said, "Good to hear from Rob Ickes. Absolutely one of the best." Exactly. Let me flip through here.
Thank you, Zeke.
Yeah, you know Zeke, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Let me see. Somebody's flipped me a friend request right up in the middle of the text. It's always good. All right, let's see. I'm reading through here real quick. Barney Rogers, by mine, says, great show. Mike Kelly said, you need to tell Rob you hear he drives as good as he plays. Rode to Merle Fest with him one year and kissed the ground when we got there. Such a great guy, but Mike Kelly's funny. He's a long time guy, man.
Man, I remember meeting him before Blue Highway started. I was playing with Allison Krauss and the Cox family.
Yeah, I remember that.
Played in Knoxville, and I think he was taking pictures. But Mike doesn't know a stranger, and so we just became great friends from then on. So great to hear from you, Mike. I miss you, buddy.
Yeah, he's a good man. Got a buddy writing in saying howdy from Rowdy Reese. I was thinking about Mike Kelly. You've known him a long time. Did you know him as long as you knew Earl Marlar, or was I know you?
Well, I never met Earl, but I know the stories, and I love it. I'm a fan. I'll just say that.
I knew you subscribed to his newsletter at one time.
Yes, and it's brilliant. Yes.
And back then, I know the guy that did all that stuff didn't have a copy machine, so each one of them was handwritten. Imagine that if you had to do handwriting on the Bluegrass Unlimited, every one of them. But Earl had a good group. But let me tell you a funny story about him. You knew his mandolin player from around here. Well, Sam Bush had saw some of the newsletters that was put out by the Marlar fan club, and anyway, we're upstanding. I hadn't met Sam before. I had just started playing with JD, and JD said, I want to introduce you to our dobro player. And Sam comes over, and JD says, you probably don't know him, but you know his dad. And he said, who's that? And he said, Earl Marlar. And Sam said, why does he hate me? And I said, man, he don't. I said, you just imagine that. And he said, no, I just feel like he hates me. And I said, well, he's really not my dad, but I said, I know he's a big fan of yours, and and I said, he plays more like you than anybody I've ever heard. And Sam goes, really, man, how have I missed him? And I said, well, you need to subscribe, and he did. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page on that, because you talk about people from Knoxville, and he was one I knew that you had met and idolized. Paul Scheminger said, "Great conversation." You hear all that noise, my wife's coming in the door, and my dogs go totally.
You dogs sound like piranhas.
Oh, they're crazy. Here's the way it comes. I'll walk in the front door, she'll be behind me, and they're jumping up and down, and then they look at me like, they blank out of the way, and they're down at the back, like going in circles around her like a bunch of piranhas. And so I always know they're like better than a burglar alarm. I mean, I can't slip in the house. Don't work. But anyway, that was the noise. Paul Scheminger, great conversation, Phil and Rob. And then Paul also wanted to know, says, how's the chickens, Rob?
They're doing well. We've had them for a while, and then we got some more last year when the COVID thing started. And we got plenty of fresh eggs. Paul, if you need some eggs, you know where to go. My brother,
hey, don't say that to Paul. You know where to go. Yeah, I think you meant you know who to call. No, my brother, he raises all the chicken and eggs and all, and he has so much eggs, he's having to give them to everybody. And I didn't realize that chickens put out so much eggs. But we live in a subdivision. My wife said, "Can't we have 2 or 3 chickens here?" I said, "It don't work in the subdivision. I don't think they'll let us have that." And anyway, it was always something, well, then I want a cat. And I said, then get chickens. I'm not going to have another cat. And I know I just made a lot of cat lovers mad, but I've had bad experiences with them, mainly with cars.
Well, chickens, my mom says chickens are the only pet that gives you something back. So,
exactly.
That's what I like about them.
Well, see, now if a cat would bring me some kind of present, like maybe some jewelry or something like that, I would say, well, you got a little bit of importance. Paul Scheminger said he's heading over now, so he's coming to get some eggs. So,
all right, we're ready.
Hope he's coming down my way, so he'll buy me a steak. But I didn't have. Man, let me tell you this real funny. I went to a place. I won't mention the name. I think I did earlier, but really a place here in town that was, or a little out of town, that they talk about a lot. And I went in and got a couple of ribeye steaks, and we couldn't cut them. And we changed knives, and we couldn't cut them or anything. And they looked real good on the plate, but anyway.
Is this the place you went tonight?
Yeah, and I just about didn't make it back, man. It was a mess. I got back here, and then I left my phone in the car, and then I've got no home phone, and I couldn't call my wife, and I'm trying to make computer calls. And anyway, she came in about 2 minutes before you came on the air, so it was a bad night, freaky night.
Well, I guess you could get on Yelp and have your revenge on that restaurant at some point.
Yeah, we brought the steaks home because they cost so much. I think we'll put them in a blender and make a something like a potted meat spread, except with ribeye.
That sounds good.
Anyway,
that sounds like a Bill Monroe thing.
Man,
something on the bus.
I've got to show you sometime, and I swear I'll get on to what we're going to talk about. When I first started working up at Bill Monroe Music Park, the owners were going through paperwork and stuff, and they found a contract there that Jimmy Martin was going to play. I've told this on here before, but I want you to have this. This is killer.
Okay.
They found all this stuff. Well, they found a thing where Jimmy Martin was going to play, and he wanted Tom T. Hall to come and play. Well, Tom T. sent a contract back. It was handwritten, very short, like four requirements. The first one was that Tom was not to be billed. I mean, this is Tom saying this now, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Tom didn't want to be billed. He said it's all about Jimmy Martin, and he don't be on the bill. It goes down. The last thing, he said that he wanted a cabin, stocked with water and what, and he said their refrigerator stocked with rabbit, squirrel, groundhog, and I forget what else, maybe some pheasants or something, but I just looked at that and I thought, man, that's pretty funny. You got this guy Tom T. Hall that's like country royalty that you would think would go eat a big steak with you, and he'd probably prefer a rabbit or a groundhog. So it's the way they're raised, man, the part of the country. But let's get on here and talk about Reso Summit. Tell me what year you started that, and let's talk too about Betty Wheeler and some of your teachers and things like that and the faculty.
Yeah. So Reso Summit, you can go to resosummit.com to find out more about it. But I had taught at a lot of these camps, all over the place, and they're always super fun. And then I noticed that there was a mandolin camp out in California, and that was the first one I'd seen that was like just one instrument, because usually they have banjos and all the bluegrass instruments. And I thought, that's pretty cool, and it was also kind of artist run, like Mike Marshall and David Grisman,
right?
And then of course Steve Rufo,
Rufo's a good
put it together. Yeah, Rufo's great. But it just kind of seemed like it was more artist driven, and I like that part of it. And so I just was thinking, well, I wonder if I could do a camp, just for the dobro. And of course, I don't have that skill set to put something like that on, but I had just started working with Betty Wheeler, who's a great dobro player from San Diego area, and she had taken a lot of my camps. When I taught at different camps, she was in my class. Just enjoyed her, and then Highway played their festival in San Diego, and her and her boyfriend were helping put that on. And she was so organized, I was like, man, this lady is awesome. And so at IBMA, soon after that, I just sort of threw the idea at her, and she got very excited. And by the end of the day, she had possible locations and budgets, and and I was like, oh, this is great, And so we just did it, And the first one, I think we said if we had 30 people show up, we'd be happy, we'd break even or whatever. And I think we had 80 that first year.
Wow.
And then we expanded a little bit, where we probably have about 120 now. We could get bigger, but we like our location, and it's, we kind of got it dialed in, so it's a great experience for everybody. And I think it's nice to keep it, somewhat contained and not too big. And so I think we've been doing it about 13 or 14 years now, and it sells out every year, like in 10 minutes. We've never advertised or anything. It's just kind of word of mouth. But yeah, if you want to find out more about it, resosummit.com. And I also have a teaching website now called bigmusictent.com. And we launched about 6 months before the virus started, for the lockdown, and so that was kind of nice timing. And so it's been fun for me to, put some more time into that this year, and got a great team that we work with to make that all happen. And, we have hours and hours of videos there, and then people can ask me specific questions. And so there's just a lot of great stuff there. So if you're interested in learning the dobro on the internet, just go to bigmusictent.com and you will love it. I'm really proud of the website.
Can they find that through your page as well?
Yeah, you can go to robickes.com and just click the link there, or just, Big Music 10 is the name, or Rob's Reso Room. That's like my section of it. And we also have a series of lessons by Trey Hensley, which is great. So, so that's been a great project.
Well, I think the pandemic, it was bad for so many people, but for musicians, it was bad unless you were a musician who was a little deeper than going and playing and going home. When you your mind starts working, and my mind, I know, is a lot like yours, I guess, in a way. Not putting you down with that, but
I was gonna say like mine, but a lot sharper.
Yeah, right. Man, I've had so much cancer medicine pumped through my brain. I have to look. I saw my wife today and said, what you in the house for?" And I realized it was no, it's not got that bad, but man, I'll be driving, all of a sudden I forget where I'm at for a minute or two.
But, well, I got to tell you that you are, one of my heroes, because I know what you've been through, and it's just amazing what you have conquered and survived. So you're an inspiration to a lot of people, and you're definitely an inspiration to me. So I really admire what you have, gone through, and I'm so glad you're still here, and I'm so glad that you're doing this podcast, because like I said, you
a few months to a year ahead, like, with this time comes in a year, what am I going to be doing or whatever. And I think there's just so many people during, the pandemic that were musicians, and some friends of mine, it's like, well, I ain't made no money in a year. And it's like, there's so many options right now. I mean, you don't have to be the best dobro player, the best mandolin player, or what, to have a site to give some lessons and tips, because people are always looking, after they've come to a certain amount of camps or something, that they get online when they can't get out. And, and a lot of these older guys that have retired, they're just ready to throw that money at anywhere they can get a new lick,
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, how, so many people have gotten into music this year. So there's definitely a silver lining to all the craziness, and just, I think the world was moving online, but it got bumped on there really quickly last year, and and I think there's a part of it that will stay there, So it's just kind of a different ballgame now. It's good to have a lot of different things going on if you're a musician, I think, and to help you survive crazy times, which we're all going to have no matter what we do.
You definitely have to have a certain couple of options up your sleeve on things, because, if something like this, happens, like this pandemic, and you don't have anything planned, you're in a big mess if the only way you've made your money is playing a mandolin or playing a dobro, and you don't have a plan to use it anywhere but on the stage. You have to improvise and, come up with things and stuff. And that's what I admire about you, is especially with you and Betty. You just always seem to do the right thing. You got hooked up with her. I mean, that's a home run. You got hooked up with Trey. That's one. And, that's a good way at our ages and stuff to look.
Well, I think I'm really picky about who I work with. You know what I mean? Because I was spoiled, with Blue Highway for so many years. I think it's such a great band, and I don't know. I guess who I hang out with is very important to me. I don't know. Just if I'm going to spend time with somebody, I want it to be somebody that I really click with, and so so thank you for that that compliment.
No, I mean that, man. I mean, that's
well, you know how it is. You're on stage for 45 minutes and you're hanging out for 23 hours. So
right.
So you want the other 23 hours to be fun too.
Yeah, the guys you run the road with, which brings me up to a buddy of mine and yours, Steve Gully.
Oh man, he was the sixth member of Blue Highway, really. He filled in for Wayne several times. I think he filled in for Tim a couple times. He was He really was. And then, of course, he and Tim wrote so many great songs for us.
Went Through the Window of a Train, Song of the Year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so many others, and just a great guy. I mean, he just always made us smile, whenever we saw him at the festival. We were kind of brothers, just kind of going through the same things at the same time, and so just kind of, we just kind of clicked, whenever we saw Steve. Such a great guy.
Oh yeah, me and him. I met him at around age 12, and we've known each other, but we lost each other for a few years when he went into working at Rentro Valley. But when he called me and wanted to do Grasstown, from that point, man, we had been really deep friends, but we really got even closer because me and him rode together everywhere. And Steve used to carry all my bags. When I got sick, he wouldn't let me touch any bags.
Wow.
And anyway, we had pictures made the last time I saw Steve before he was sick, and we had pictures made, and I forgot to get my hat. And he goes, "You stay here, I'm going to get it." And he walks up like 2 flights of stairs. And it's like the next week, he was real sick. And anyway, it just turned out that he wasn't getting the right, treatment.
Well, my dad died from the same type of cancer.
My dad did too.
It doesn't give you much warning, that's for sure.
It really don't, and it's still pretty much a death sentence. It's just bad,
Well, I was hearing you tell those stories and just talking about the brotherhood and the friendship. And going back to music, that's what I heard when I was a kid and I listened to Manzanita. These weren't session musicians that were just showing up because there was money. Everybody had skin in the game. I mean, there was friendship and it came out in their music. And so I think that's what I'm talking about when
makes a difference, knowing
it. Keeping it real, And I can listen to a record and I can tell if somebody's there because they want to be or because they're just getting paid. You listen to music closely and you pick up on this stuff. And again, that's what, Tony just brought all these guys together and took them to an even higher level, So it's pretty amazing. But you hear those miles. Sam Bush, ran into Tony Rice at Union Springs or wherever that was, a long time ago, and kind of got the whole ball rolling. So those guys go way back, and you hear it in their music. And
you do.
And you and Steve have that too, And so that's stuff that is, to me, is a little bit deeper than just a couple guys showing up and playing on a record. So that's kind of the music that gets me excited.
Well, buddy, I appreciate that. When you drive and ride, from sundown to sunrise with somebody, and just the two of you, you talk about everything in the world. Then it gets to a point. Then you're just talking stupid, and it's like you're thinking, "Go to sleep, man. This ain't." You was funny about an hour ago, but now you're not. But Steve Gully was always funny. That's the thing about Gully. He was always funny. And me and him, and you will appreciate this, where we rode so much, we got used to where everything was along the road. So Steve had changed the names on everything. And we'd go down the road, and it got to a point where there'd be a restaurant that we hated, and we'd pass, the big blue sign that's got all these restaurants on it, and there'd be one that only had this one restaurant on. I can't remember what it was, and Steve would point at it, and he goes, he just point. And he'd look over, and he goes, "Not today, man. I ain't got my barf bag." And and it was real funny. We passed, and I know I repeat stuff on here sometimes, but me and Gully I think we'd stayed at a hotel in Canada, and we looked out the window, and Gully would always give you a review of what's out there. He'd say something like, "Man, there's a McDonald's on the road," which I always called them Greasy Macs. So did Steve. He goes, "Man, there's a Greasy Mac on this corner." And he'd say, "There's this or that." Well, looking out the window one time, he saw this big air conditioning unit, and he says, "Man, that air conditioning unit's got me blocked. I can't see what's on the other side." Well, this air conditioning unit was called a Munter, Munters. Well, I went over and looked at it, and I said, "Man," I said, "it looks like a Herman Munster's come and built this air conditioning thing." And it would, but Munster is Munter. So every time we'd be going down the road, Steve would spot these on these office buildings. He got to picking them out, and he'd look up and he'd say, "See that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he'd say, "Fred Gwynn just stuck a wad of money in his pocket right there with the monsters." And that's what I would say. But he would just find stupid things, and you do that when you're on the road.
Well, that's one of the things I liked, about being in a band was you get to this subliminal communication, where you just say one word,
yeah,
and
everybody knows it. Oh yeah,
exactly. And it's kind of like music, it's like you don't talk, you just play a certain lick, and it's like, okay, that's a Crow lick, so I'm going to play a Jerry Douglas lick or whatever. And we would often just ride down the road in the van, and we would just have whole conversations, and somebody would be Tony Rice, and somebody would be Terry Balcom, and then somebody would be Ricky Skaggs,
Yeah.
Discuss the Persian Gulf War or whatever in those voices. And, but yeah, I really like that, and when you spend that much time with somebody, I mean, it's crazy, but it makes the music deeper, because well, it's like you listen to Buck Owens and the Buckaroos, and it's like those guys are so together, everything they played together. They were breathing together, and you cannot recreate that unless you go out there and play all those crappy gigs and the good gigs, and and they do all those miles together. So it kind of comes back to that's the kind of music that gets me excited. Something where somebody's poured their life into it.
Yeah, and you mentioned Buck Owens. It's kind of funny, sad and funny. Not sad because Buck stuffed a lot of money in his pocket for the hee-haw stuff, and I don't blame him. But, Buck always played such an idiot, and people did not realize how good the guy was and how good the band was.
Yeah, and he knows it. I mean, if you read his biography, it's like he knows he kind of trashed his reputation later musically,
sure.
But man, all you got to do is put on one of those records from
Carnegie.
the 60s. Yeah. And it's like a rocket, man. It's just it's so it's you can't even put it into words, man. It's just such a
you can't. And we were talking just a minute ago how friends communicate and they know. Buck and Don Rich had that about them.
Oh yeah.
It was magic when they sometimes, and this. You get playing with certain people group, and all it does is take a certain look without words, and people know what you're talking about. Like you can look at somebody and they'll say, "Oh yeah, okay, that's maybe third solo," or something.
Yes.
And Buck and Don was like that with stuff, and they phrased so much together. It's just like the way you said people learned to breathe together. And that's, with all that phrasing. And I didn't know what phrasing even meant because I came from little local bands that it was about picking and stuff. And when I first went with JD, I remember being in the living room and we were rehearsing and he was talking about phrasing. And I didn't understand. Then I started understanding. And then we started talking. He started talking about applying it to instruments. And I thought, that's pretty smart. I didn't realize that because it used to be just about playing what you know, and now I'm hearing, phrasing being, two quick notes and a little pause or whatever. But
I just, for my teaching website, somebody asked about Head Over Heels. And the Bluegrass Album Band version, and I hadn't listened to that in a long time, and I put that on, and that banjo kickoff just blew my mind because he's doing these pull-offs like 3 in a row, and and we'll just totally geek out here for a minute because I remember Ron Block when we were younger, out in California. I noticed that when he did pull-offs, he used his fingernail, and he said that was a crow thing. And I'm sure the banjo players know this, but they grow their middle fingernail out, so because it gets this certain tone that crow does, but that's what I'm hearing on the beginning. Hey, everybody who's listening to this, go check out Head Over Heels Bluegrass Album Band and listen to that banjo kickoff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just so perfect. And then Tony, his rhythm, he and Crow were just so locked in. It just blew my mind all over again. So, yeah, I know when you're talking about phrasing, Crow is a master of it,
Crow, what you were talking about, how he's picking it and everything. Crow never understood, because I spent, me and Crow spent a lot of front seat time of me driving and him over there looking at me and say, "You awake?" I'd say, "Well, we're not in the ditch, are we?" "No." "Okay." And I'd say, "Go back to sleep." Crow, go back to sleep. And, but we spent a lot of time up front, and he would talk to me about things. And one thing I had found, Tut Taylor used to live about, I can't remember. I'm going to say maybe 15 miles from me. And so I go to his house a lot and learn a lot of stuff. I mean, one time Tut opened this box they found his closet, and he goes, "Oh, I don't know why I never opened that." It was like 1963, and opened it up, and it had like 200 national picks in it, still in paper.
Wow.
And stuff.
Finger picks?
Finger picks, yeah.
The gold mine.
Yeah. There. But anyway, Tut had these tapes because Tut used to carry a recorder around, and he followed Flatt and Scruggs a lot. So Tut had these reels that nobody had ever heard. As a matter of fact, I put them all on CD, and Sonny Osborne told Mike Bub that they ain't nothing I ain't heard, and Bub took that and heard it, and he said Sonny took his hat off and covered his face and said, "How did I miss that?" And Bub said, "Well, it's been on reel to reel at Tut Taylor's house till about a week ago." So anyway, I brought this CD along that I had got that Crow hadn't heard, and I put it on, and they're playing I think they're playing "You Are My Flower" or something. No, they're playing "Shucking the Corn." That's what it was. And they're playing that, and Crow's over there saying, "Good God, listen to that banjo, man." Earl said, "That's the way you got to play a banjo. That's the way." And I'd say, You sound like that when you play that song." "Oh, no, I don't. I don't sound like that." I said, "Yeah, you do, JD." And he said, "Well, if you think I sound like that, your ears ain't no good." And I said, "Buddy, I'm trying to compliment you. I'm trying to tell you, to me, you sound like that."
When I was playing with Earl Scruggs, I would, ask him about stuff, or when they were on the road and stuff, and he said, I think he was talking about meeting Josh Graves in Lexington, because Josh was playing with Wilma Lee and Stoney Cooper, and he said they used to play a TV show, I think, in Lexington, and there was a small live audience, and he said one day this kid came out and just blew my mind. He's so good on that banjo. And I said, "JD Crow?" He said, "Yep."
See, Crow, Crow would fall over if he heard that,
Well, yeah, I mean, Earl said he picked the fire out of it. He just got excited just remembering hearing JD Crow as a kid playing the banjo,
I went to one of the Scruggs picking parties over at the house. Well, it wasn't a picking party, actually. It was just a gathering of some friends at Tammy Wynette's home. And anyway, Mike Bub called me and stuff to come over, so me and Bobby went over. And I remember being in there and talking to Earl. I mean, I'd talked to him a lot before and stuff, but we were sitting there talking, and he says, you still playing with old JD?
All right.
I said, yeah. And he says, man, he's wearing that banjo out, ain't he? And I said, yeah. But I said, I've talked to him before and told him that you was still the best, but he was running a hot second or third to you. And Scruggs said, well, yeah, he's out there in front of me like that. So I went and told JD this stuff, and JD goes, God, Phil, don't be telling him stuff like that. And I said, I was just telling him because he brought you up. And he goes, Earl brought me up. And I said, yeah. And he says, he's a good guy, And but it was funny. I think it's just the admiration of that. It's like, Rob, I mean, at the level you play and everything right now, if somebody come up to you and said, I think you're better than Josh Graves, he was one of your heroes.
Punch him in the mouth.
That's what I mean. It's like, I think it's the respect we have for these people. If somebody come up to me and said, you play this better than Oswald or something like that, it's still going to be, no.
Well, it's funny. We're just in this music. We're all just so humble, mm-hmm. We're the most humble people on the planet. No, I'm just kidding.
But players are.
But it's just so funny when you think about, I don't know, rock and roll people or whatever, and there's a humility amongst most bluegrass musicians that you're talking about. J.D. Crowe, the
mm-hmm.
top of the top, and then and Earl was so humble, and
mm-hmm.
and he was such a team player, and he always wanted to make sure the band was happy and everybody
mm-hmm.
liked their room and everything,
mm-hmm.
and there's this humility thing that kind of goes through the music, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I got a little J.D. Crowe story here. Todd Phillips told me a long time ago. And he said when they were recording that first Bluegrass Album Band record,
mm-hmm.
They were playing for a while and cutting some tracks, and they'd go in and listen. And he said J.D. just like crunched those shoulders up, like, ugh, like,
yeah, and pinch between his eyes.
Could not stand what he played, and I was just scratching my head going,
that's great.
That's the greatest banjo playing ever, how
mm-hmm.
could, and I remember when, you mentioned that great Dobro Sessions album, and yeah, I just moved to Nashville, and it was such a thrill for me to be on that record. But I remember, and Stuart Duncan, is always been one of my heroes,
mm-hmm.
and it was great to have him play on my songs on that record.
Sure.
And he was just really complaining about his playing and was not happy with what he was playing. And I'm thinking, if he's not happy with how that sounds, I'm never going to be happy, that's for sure. But there's just kind of a humility that runs through. I don't know. I think when you're just into music, you're always, pushing yourself, and you can do better,
Yep.
Yeah, you always want to do a little better, even if it's great.
It's like these drag racers that they'll look at and they say, you just ran, incredible speed through a quarter mile an hour, and these guys hitting up on 300, over 300 miles an hour through a quarter mile, and they'll say, man, you really burned it out there today, and they'll look around and say, well, I got to get with my crew here. We need some work on that car. And I'm thinking, man, you just killed it. Can you just say,
it's funny, on my teaching website, I just, it's fun. I share stuff I'm excited about or
mm-hmm.
stuff I'm working on or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I just have realized, we're all, if you're a musician, you're OCD, you are obsessive about the sound and the way your picks fit and everything, and
never happened.
And then in explaining songs or how you play a song, I've just really, I've always known it, but it's really made it apparent how OCD we all are,
mm-hmm.
and you have to be, especially on the dobro, because there's no frets, and you got metal on metal, and
mm-hmm.
it can be very noisy and out of tune,
mm-hmm.
So So anyway, it's just been so when I hear that JD Crowe story, I mean, it's on the one hand it's hard to believe, and then on one hand it's like, yeah, I kind of get it.
Yeah. What you said there was kind of funny because my track I'm using on this Dobro record, there was two notes together that really bothered me. And,
yeah, you probably stayed up 3 nights thinking about it, huh?
Yeah, more than that.
Yeah, man.
More than that. So I sent it to a buddy of mine that that had tracked it, and I said, "Hey, can you tune these?" And he said, "They're in tune."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, well, I don't know." So then I go over and start mastering, and I sit there playing it, and it's funny. I'm sitting there beside the engineer. And he starts coming up on his notes, and I just turn around and look at him to see if I get any expression out of his face.
Yeah.
And he don't change expression. And I said,
nope.
Did you hear anything out of tune back there? And he said, where at? I said, back up and let's listen to it. And he sits there and plays it again, and there's no expression on his face or anything. And then he gets about 4 notes past that, and he says, "Are you talking about right there?" And it's like, now shoot, I've got OCD about both spots now because he asked me, was I talking about this one? And I said, was that one out of tune? He said, no, I just saw you kind of flinch. But
yeah,
it sticks with you, you know.
And I read something recently, and the author was saying, sound is fleeting, and so it's hard to tell. Like sometimes when you're playing, you might think you made a mistake, and then you listen to the track later, and it's great, you know. Yeah. And maybe you were hearing somebody else, or who knows what you're hearing. So it's funny. It's like in some ways you kind of trust yourself less, you know, the more you play. I don't know. As far as the bad stuff, I guess, you know, you just let things happen, you know, and don't squash them before. You just got to sort of trust who you're playing with and just let it happen. But yeah, it's a mind game, man. It's a trip.
Have to go back sometime the next day, and it sounds totally different. And
we do that.
We do that, and we get finished, and we just kind of say, "Hey, let's break it off. We're wasting time tonight. Let's go to bed and come in tomorrow." And it made a difference. We'd listen to it and it's like, oh, that's pretty good, you know?
Oh, yeah. We did that in Blue Highway a lot, you know, especially on those first records. We just work way too long on in a day and then just give up at night and then come in the next morning and we'd all be, oh, man, that sounds a lot better than it did last night.
You know, after a certain amount of time, it's time to quit. You know, anyway.
You get less return for sure after a while.
Yeah, funny Scott Vestal's story. He was working on a project with me, and about 10 o'clock he got real tired, and he said, "Phil, I think we need to break off tonight." It was about 10. I said, "Okay." So I get in bed, and my phone rings, and I'm staying there's no hotels near Scott, so I'm sitting down the road, and I've gotten in bed, you know, and. Anyway, my phone, and I've even took some of my medicine to help me sleep that I always had to take when I traveled. And Scott calls. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I just laid down." He said, "Man, I got a second shot of energy here.
Oh my God!
If you want to come back up, man, I know we can do a couple more tunes." And I said, "I don't know if I can or not." And he said, "Well, why don't you come up? I'm ready to do my tunes and stuff." So I go up there and I get to Scott's house, and I walk in, and Scott's got a rubber pig's nose on with a rubber band around his head, and he's got his banjo pick stuck in the pig's nose, and he looks at me and he goes, "I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pick or not. I can't find my picks." And he starts laughing, and he just falls down on the control console, and he looks over and he says, "Man, are you really wanting to work more on this? You think we'll call it a night?" And I said, "Scott, you just got me out of bed. I just come in the door. Are we not going to do nothing?" He said, "Man, I'm just burned." And I said, "Well, you called me and come up." And he said, "Yeah, but it just took you a while to get up." And I said, "I threw on my clothes and got in the car." I said, "That's been 10 minutes. I said, I got up here quicker than a fireman, and you're out of energy. Yeah, I can't do this. I'll get back and leave. But it was funny how that works.
I love it. I love it.
Another, I was talking Crow. I'll tell you a funny Crow. And you know how banjo players and people like that are. It's like theirs is the most important thing, and everything else is just kind of, not the Crow's like that. But Crow, I remember one time, he looked over and he goes, "What we got left to do this song?" I said, "I got to put a dobro on it." He goes, "Well, okay." Then they get talking about banjo. So I'm in there in the control booth, and they're talking about banjo, and I'm hearing banjo come back, fixing stuff. They're going through this, and all of a sudden it gets real quiet, and I'm sitting there, and I said, "You guys ready yet?" Nobody answers back or anything. So I still sit there a few minutes, and I say it again, and finally I go out of the booth, and see, we all rode in from the motel in a van, so we only had one vehicle. So I come out, and there's nobody in the studio, and except the receptionist. I said, "Do you know where all the guys went?" She said, "They went to eat." I said, "I was in here getting ready to track," and so I didn't have a cell phone or nothing back then. I don't think they did either. But they come back in about 2 hours and stuff and said, "Well, I want to go on to that other song." I said, "No, man, we got to fix mine right here." "Well, we can't stay up all night doing it." I said, "I've been over here 2 hours while you all went to Shoney's Big Boy, but, man, I ain't going to keep you tied up, but I want you to do this for me. Tell me what 2 things that you think were the most important things that helped you to learn to play correctly and stuff like that."
I feel like just really, I don't know, that's the other thing. It's funny having a teaching website because, hell, I don't know. I mean, I just was so into it. I just started playing, and then people called me, to play with them, and I think just that lightning bolt experience of hearing Mike Aldridge play, I feel like I'm still sort of feeding off that energy, But I mean, you just gotta do it, You can, and I think I was so into it. I just wanted to play with people, and getting in a good band was always important to me. I felt like I couldn't do it by myself. To get to a certain level, I mean, you could do so much on your own, but you've got to play with great musicians, and so that was always a big goal.
I agree.
But I mean, I was living in California, and I was in some great bands, but it just wasn't getting it for me, and I just knew I'd never be happy unless I, came to Nashville and tried to take it as far as I could, So I can't even really say do these 2 things. It's just more like just following the inspiration of music,
Well, I'll tell you what, you've done well with it, Rob, and I'm glad you came to Nashville, and I still remember being in the studio, and something happened with my guitar, and I had to come and borrow one of yours that I used on a record. I can't remember which guitar I borrowed, but you had so many of them at the time. I really seriously debated about keeping that one and just bringing you an empty case back. But it's been a long time since we've known each other, and I've enjoyed being your buddy and you being mine. And
right back at you. You're my favorite people, and I remember the day we met. Yeah, that was Rochester, New York. And, you were always super, super kind to me, and it's just fun to talk dobro stuff with you, or band stuff. You're hilarious.
Man, you are.
I think it's great that you got this show.
Well, buddy,
awesome.
You're funny too. A lot of people don't realize that unless they talk to you. But look over here behind my head. You see on the wall? I mean, you've got matching burls. You knew that, didn't you?
Oh, very good. I knew you had one. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I love that guitar, man.
He can do it. He can do it.
He really can. I love it. You've got all the black bullet or gum plating stuff on all yours, don't you? The cover plate.
Yeah.
Man, I
Yes.
love that
Yeah.
stuff. It don't mark or nothing. So
Oh man, yeah, it's a great look, a great sound. Yeah, he's
yeah, it
the whole
is.
package, man. He
I
can do it.
think the difference between mine and yours, you have diamond. You have diamond inlay or something different on yours.
Could be. I don't even know.
You don't look at the fretboard, man. That's pretty crazy. Look, I'm gonna let you go, buddy. And I didn't mean to keep you so long, but man, these shows I find out when I get with people, it's almost like we're hanging out at a festival talking. The only thing is we got to catch our tongue because where we would normally say somebody's name or we would normally say a cuss word.
We've cleaned it up a little bit, but it's still fun. I just always enjoy hanging out with you. So thanks for having me on your show tonight.
Have a great night, and I'll say be sure and Rob, when should they go look at seeing about when the website opens up for Reso Summit? If you do it, what should they be looking for?
We'll post it on the website. Yeah, so just go to resosummit.com, and I think there's a note on there, probably from last year, and it probably just says tentative dates, and so we'll figure it out pretty soon.
Well, I'll say as a dobro player, if there's any camp anywhere, this is hands down the camp, because if you want to study with people like Greg Booth, he's there. From time to time, all these players change out. And, Greg's in Alaska, so you can't go take lessons from him very easy, but it's cool. And he's at Reso Summit, and you have so many players down there. And
it's pretty crazy to see 120 plus dobros, in one area. So yeah, it's really a blast.
I sent you a little student of mine who turned out to be a great player, a little Duncan. Well, he's not little anymore, but Duncan Stitt.
Monster player.
Yeah, he's only been playing about 6 months. It's like, man, you got to go somewhere else. You're wearing it out, these dang kids. But buddy, you have a good night. I'll see you somewhere if the festivals fire up. If not, I'll talk to you on the internet. And thanks again, buddy, okay?
My pleasure, man. Always great to talk with you, Phil. You take care.
You too, buddy. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Me hang up with Rob here. I know my shows always run over a long time, but it's because I get talking with my friends. That's what it is. I'm going to go down here real quick. Betty Edmondson, great show tonight. Thank you both for taking time to spend with us tonight. Really enjoyed the show. Thank you, Betty. Means a lot. Jared Hall, Reso Summit or bust. I agree with you there. Randy Green, great show, Phil. Thanks, Rob, for spending your evening here. Wonderful stories. My favorite show so far. Yeah, man. Rob's always fun to talk to. I just hit you with a big like. I hit all you guys with a like. Lynn Lawson, Skaggs, always a great show. Thank you so much. I'll tell you who I've got next week. I'll post this because I know my crowd's thinning, but it's getting late. But I'm not going to have a band member or member of a band. Now, you banjo players, open your ears really good for this. I'm going to have Greg Rich on here. Greg was the guy that came in and just totally turned around the banjos at Gibson Guitars and Gibson Banjos. There's a time during Gibson that everybody refers to as the Greg Rich era. That's when the best banjos were coming out of later times, and Greg Rich is known as the man when it comes to designing banjos. He can design anything, but he really turned that whole company around. And now Greg is out in California working at the Recording King warehouse, or not warehouse, or Recording King Industries, I guess. He works in that end. But tune in next week. Greg's a funny, crazy guy, and I'll probably have to put some kind of delay switch on him because Greg likes to talk funny sometimes, and we may have to be beep when he talks. But you're going to love Greg Rich. He's a killer guy. Thanks for tuning in. Rob Ickes was just a great guest, and like I say, I'm a dobro player. And Rob Ickes is just, he's one of my very, very favorite players out there. And there's a lot of them. And listen for the new Dobro record. It will be called Masters of Slide, the Spider Sessions. It's going to be out about June the 11th. So anyway, I'll be telling you the label here soon. Thank you so much. Bobby Wright, great show, Phil. Really enjoyed hearing Rob. Thank you so much, Bobby. I appreciate you. And you guys just have a great night. God bless. Take care of yourself.